Let's get some of the day's other top stories now. The former military chief, known as the Butcher of Bosnia, has been jailed for life for his crimes during the Bosnian War of the 1990s. Bosnian Serb commander Ratko Mladic wasn't present when the verdict was read out. He was removed from the UN tribunal in The Hague after shouting at the judges. But he was found guilty of genocide, war crimes and crimes against humanity. Under his command, Bosniaks were raped, starved and beaten. He was also found to have significantly contributed to the Srebrenica genocide in 1995, when 7,000 boys and men were massacred. Well, the UN prosecutor said the verdict wasn't against all Serbs.
Some today will claim that this judgment is a verdict against the Serbian people. My office rejects that claim in the strongest terms. Mladic's guilt is his and his alone. Others will say that Mladic is a hero and was defending his people. This judgment demonstrates that nothing could be further from the truth. Mladic will be remembered by history for the many communities and lives he destroyed.
Well, Soraya Lenny is outside the United Nations Tribunal in The Hague. She explains what awaits Ratko Mladic now.
Ratko Mladic will spend the rest of his natural life in prison. Of course, that's what the tribunal says. Anyway, he does, of course, have the right to appeal. There is a mechanism at the tribunal, at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, which allows convicted individuals like Radovan Karadzic and now like Ratko Mladic to appeal their convictions. Now, he's currently in a prison, or he will be in a prison, which is where he spent most of his time since 2011, since he was extradited here to The Hague. The prison is not that far away from us. It's derisively referred to as the Hague Hilton because apparently conditions there are quite nice. And many of these individuals, while they were waiting trial, they have access to all kinds of things: cooking, chess, football, very nice conditions indeed, and he will spend his time there while he appeals. If his appeals run out, that's when he will be transferred to another prison. He was found not guilty of count 1 genocide. That's genocide that was alleged to have been committed in municipalities in Bosnia against Bosnian Muslims and Bosnian Croats in areas including Prijedor and surrounding regions there in the Bosnian Krajina. Now, he was found not guilty, and that's because, according to the tribunal, they could not prove, prosecutors could not prove that there was genocidal intent. Intent is a very crucial key word here when trying to prove war crimes, crimes against humanity.
Well, it's taken 2 decades to try Mladic. Let's take a look at what got us to this point.
He was a loyal soldier, decorated and dedicated to Yugoslavia. But ultimately, Ratko Mladic became known for something else: mass murder. He's now facing a verdict on 11 counts of war crimes, crimes against humanity and genocide. The charges are from the Bosnian War of 1992 to 1995.
It will indeed be an important decision to see if the judges will follow us in relation to the 2 counts of genocide in relation to Srebrenica, where of course we have already a number of convictions in the past, and in relation to the municipalities where until now there have been no convictions.
Prosecutors contend Mladic committed genocide not only in Srebrenica, but in 6 other Bosnian districts. He's pleaded not guilty in a case that has taken more than 2 decades, from arrest warrant, detention, trial to verdict.
You know, in the first years after Mladic was indicted, he was indicted in 1995, well, during a few years after that, he was not hiding at all. He was driving around, getting standing ovations in football stadiums, and there was no one really seriously looking to arrest him.
After the war, Mladic moved to Serbia. There he was protected by a vast criminal network.
We arrested some of them, but the most wanted ones were hard to find. Now, as I recall, I can tell where the main obstruction stemmed from. They came precisely from the state authorities. The executive branch actually protected them. And that's why it took so long.
It's obvious that nobody can hide, and I mean, for 16 years, and stay in the country without support of the state.
Mladic went underground when Serbian President Slobodan Milosevic fell from power in 2000. He was finally arrested in a small village in northern Serbia 11 years later, a shadow of the man who became known as the Butcher of the Balkans.
No matter how deep the conspiracy was to hide Ratko Mladic for all of those years, in 2011 he ended up here at the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia. And it will be the tribunal and not his supporters who ultimately decide his fate. Soraya Leni, TRT World, The Hague.
Well, let's get an idea of what that verdict means for Bosnians. I'm joined in the studio by Safet Vukalic. He's a survivor of the Bosnian War. Thank you very much indeed for coming in. So Ratko Mladic, the man known as the Butcher of Bosnia, jailed for life. What does that mean for you?
It's difficult to explain. Me being from Prijedor, I'm going to feel slightly differently perhaps to people from other areas. One thing that I was hoping they was going to be found guilty of, he wasn't, and that's the one a charge of genocide in other municipalities. So for now, it's still officially Srebrenica is the only place of genocide, and I think that's what hurts us a lot. In terms of years, life sentence, that doesn't really mean much to me. I wanted to see that to be guilty verdict as well.
Because you were so young when the war started, 16, and
yes.
Your father and your brother both ended up in prison camps.
Yeah, they were in prison camps, and the pictures and videos came out in '92, and Europe and the world allowed it to go on for 3.5 years still, and in the end it culminated in Srebrenica. We had concentration camps. My brother was in 2, my father was in 3. They've survived, luckily. We consider ourselves to be very lucky, but many didn't. They were there because they were Muslims. There was no other reason. Many were taken and tortured, and in all the most evil ways, and didn't survive it. There's many that still haven't been found. The remains, people are still waiting to find them around Bosnia, not just Prijedor. And they don't have closure. They still won't have closure. Over 3,000 people killed in Prijedor, and still so many missing. Over 100 children were killed in Prijedor. Who's responsible there? What is that?
How do you move on from something like this? I mean, do things like this trial, does that kind of justice system, does that help?
It does help to an extent. When the World War II finished, the Nazis weren't allowed to keep what they occupied. Whereas what happened in Bosnia, Serbia obviously tried to occupy Slovenia, Croatia, and Bosnia. They didn't succeed. Apart from Bosnia, they've got half of the country, what I call still occupied. I consider it occupied. It's Republika Srpska, only for Serbs. You can't be a Muslim and put yourself forward to rule that part of the country. And Dayton Peace Agreement was there to stop the war. Nothing else. It should, unfortunately, not much has moved on since then. And I think that there needs to be a next step. People need to say, if something was created out of evil, out of concentration camps, genocide, mass murder, mass graves, majority of the mass graves, or many mass graves are around Prijedor. Most mass graves, I think, the area of Prijedor has compared to the rest of Bosnia. But all that is fine, acknowledging, etc. It needs to go in history books, and Srebrenica is, but we want the rest of Bosnia to go in history and acknowledging of genocide being across the country.
Safet, thank you very much indeed for sharing your experiences with us. We appreciate that. Safet Vukalic there.